Hi there, smart choice to tune into this EHEDG Connects news update, and today we are going to provide you with an insight in the ongoing activities of EHEDG in New Zealand. And with us today is a real pioneer in the field of hygienic design. In his long career, he has propagated the use of hygienic design all around the globe for different companies. He now runs his own consulting firm, and he's also the chair of EHEDG Regional Section in New Zealand. David Lowry, nice to have you with us. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm a microbiologist by training, and my first 12 years of work were in a research institute, the Meat Industry Research Institute for New Zealand, in which I had a lot of industry focus on pathogen issues and started to get involved in troubleshooting. Then I moved to the commercial sector to be the technical lead for Ecolab in New Zealand, which included over 25 years, a stint in their headquarters in the US, time in China, setting up a food safety section, and an industry specialising focus back in New Zealand.
You've worked all around the globe. So how would you describe the differences between the food industry in New Zealand and the food equipment industry in New Zealand with those industries in the rest of the world?
Right. Can I just come up on a couple of points, Rob? One is that if you look at the fact that New Zealand and Australia have been isolated from their mother countries, I suppose, if you want to think of it that way, in terms of both being settled by the English and the industries have grown, by virtue of isolation and the length of time it took for material to arrive from other parts of the world, we have become very independent in terms of the way that we go about and somewhat stubbornly patriotic about those things.
Could you give us a small insight in the regulatory environment of hygienic design and the food industry in New Zealand?
The regulatory environment here does not specify directives, except if they are absolutely specific to export approval, but they provide outcomes, and it is up to the innovation or expertise of the individual companies to come up with standards. So that's a good thing and a bad thing, because we have a saying in New Zealand that it's the number 8 wire approach, and number 8 wire is the standard fencing wire that has been used in the farming industry for years, and all sorts of things have been constructed out of number 8 wire. And as I say, some of them are hugely innovative from a process standpoint, but troublesome from a hygienic design standpoint. And so that's an area that we have to overcome. We have to overcome, to some extent, the prevailing industry attitude that we can do it. We don't need help, but it's interesting.
What feedback do you get from the companies in New Zealand? What about, for example, the certification offerings in your region?
What we tend to get is from companies who are not members, but have items of equipment that they want to either promote or take internationally, is they're asking us about how do we get this certified. And for us in this part of the world, that's kind of difficult, because the closest laboratory in terms of testing laboratory is Taiwan or Japan. And it's an expensive exercise. And I don't think they realise, A, what certification necessarily means, and B, what's involved. So it'd be nice to be able to have a way to assist companies more in terms of getting a certification which enables suppliers in this part of the world to take their products elsewhere.
What is the scope of equipment suppliers in New Zealand at this point?
The scope of equipment manufacture, Rob, in both our countries is probably for industries such as the meat industry, for poultry industry, for some of the produce plants. You will find that the core elements tend to come from international. And so, like for your meat mincing equipment, most of those items are not built or designed locally. What tends to happen is that the link units, such as conveyors and pipework and tanks and so on, they are done locally, certainly in New Zealand. There is some unique manufacturing, but as I say, a lot of it is more the connection parts for the specific items of process equipment.
David, I understand that despite of Corona, there are some events taking place in New Zealand this year where EHEDG Regional Section New Zealand is present. Can you give us a little insight?
Coming up in June for New Zealand, there is the New Zealand Institute of Food Science Technology Conference. I was approached by one of our participants in the original Advanced Hygienic Design course in 2019. And his company supplies instrumentation and sensors to the food industry. And he said, would you be prepared to share a stand with us? So they have registered as a company with EHEDG. And I said, I'd be delighted to.
Yes, of course. But meanwhile, you also started up a training and education program for New Zealand. How is that coming along?
I feel we've had some momentum. We've had the two advanced hygienic design courses that we have run, one in each year. The first, Andy Timberley came out and delivered that. Did a sterling job for 3 days on his own. And following that, Shane Mason from Pentair and myself, we're now just received our notification that we are authorised trainers. And yes, that will definitely help us, Rob, in terms of promotion.
David Lowry, Regional Section Chair, New Zealand, thank you very much for this update and good luck with all your future endeavours.
It's been a pleasure.